Okay, so the materials that we're going to be needing today, we are going to need some yarn. I'm going to be using Paintbox Yarn's Simply DK, which is 100% acrylic. Rather than using a bright red, I've gone for a red wine shade. This colour is 115, and then I've got paper white as well, and that's for the pom-pom and for the brim at the end as well. Now, to really make an absolutely perfect pom-pom that's as lovely, thick and fluffy as this one, I would recommend getting hold of a really good pom-pom maker. I use the Clover pom-pom makers that are really, really simple to use. This one is going to be a size 35. I will put a link both for the yarn and your pom-pom makers in the description box for you. If you want to pick those up, it will be an affiliate link. You're going to need a very sharp pair of scissors so that you can get your really good shape on your pom-pom. I'm using a 4mm crochet hook with my DK yarn, but I'm doubling that up. So if you have any Aran that you want to make this in, that'll be absolutely fine as well. There are going to be some ends, so we're going to need a darning needle as well. So let's get started. So as I just mentioned, I am going to double up my yarn. So I'm taking the yarn both from the middle of the ball and from the outside, which does mean I've broken my own rules and I have taken the ball band off. I never normally take the ball band off of any yarn because it gives us so much information from the hook size that we need through to, the weight of the yarn, the lot number, so you know what dye lot has been used to make it. They really are quite an information overload, those ball bands. So keep it to one side. You can stick it in the middle once you've finished this project. So with 2 strands, you can of course just buy 2 balls, but depends how many of these you're going to make because this is a bit of a scrap buster. So grab your 2 strands, and I'm going to make a magic circle so that we can start working into the ring of the magic circle. So to do that, I place the strands in my hand, and just like normal, I create a loop over, and then I kind of clamp it over my 3rd and 4th finger. So I've got it wrapped around my 1st and my 3rd finger, and then so it crosses at the back, and then I've got this loop it brought over my 3rd finger there. Just means that I know where I'm going to be putting my hook. So you go underneath the first 2 strands, you're going to grab the next 2 with your hook and bring it through, and you'll see that I twisted it up as I brought it. So it's twisted and it's on the hook there. So undo that and do that again. So I kind of bring my yarn over my fingers like that. I'm gripping it on there, wrap it around my first 2 fingers to create a cross, and then I'm going to secure it and hold the ends with my thumb and the other ends with my 4th finger here. I'm going to insert my hook underneath those first 2 strands. I'm going to pick these 2 up, and as I bring it through, I'm going to twist my hook up and round so that it's twisted on the hook there. I'm then going to, this is why I keep this separated, I'm going to bring my hook under those 2 strands there and bring those strands through those 2 loops on my hook. I'll do that one more time because I know that a lot of people want to get the magic circle and they find it quite a challenge. So I grip these strands here and bring them around my first and bring it over the back to create that cross. I'm going to put my thumb there and just bring it over the top of my hand. Go under those first 2 strands, grip those back 2, bring my hook up and twist it. Pop my hook under those other 2 strands and bring these through the 2 strands on my hook. Okay, and that is, you're just going to literally, just very carefully, bring your fingers out and it will stay pretty much put. Now we don't want these to twist, so if you pop your finger on the top there, you can untwist your ends from that loop. Okay, so grabbing your working yarn, just bring that over to that side there. You can see that I'm pinching both the ring and the tail yarns together because we're going to work into the center of this ring here. So the first thing we do, we're going to chain 1, and that secures your magic ring. And if you don't want to do a magic ring, that's absolutely fine. You can simply do a chain 4 and it will create a ring as well. So pinching all of those together, we're going to work 6 half treble crochets in UK terms, or half double crochets into the center of this ring. So from here, we yarn over the hook, insert the hook into the middle of the magic ring that we created, bring that yarn back through, and that gives us our 3 loops we need for our half treble or half double crochet. We're going to yarn over and just pinch those bits all together and pull through, and that's our first stitch. We're going to do that 6 times. So we yarn over the hook, insert the hook, bring a loop back up, yarn over and pull through all these 3 loops on our hook. Oops. Making sure you've got all those loops on that hook still. You can pinch that and hold it to keep it secure. I'm still working around my ends here. You can see they're getting a bit twisted. That's fine. You can just simply untwist them again. So let's do stitch number 3. Going to yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over to bring that loop back through. 1, 2, 3 loops on our hook. Going to yarn over again. I'm going to pinch the work here and also pull down at the same time to bring my hook through all 3 loops on my hook. So we've got 1, 2 and 3 stitches. 1, 2, and the one under our hook is number 3. So we need to do 3 more. So we're going to yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over the hook and bring it back through. Got 3 loops on our hook. We yarn over and bring that through, just pulling down so I can bring my hook back through. That's number 4. Yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over the hook once more and bring it back through the circle. 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. Number 5, this is the final one. So we insert the hook, bring the yarn back through, and this is number 6. Pull through all the loops on our hook. So as you can see, again, my tails have got a little bit twisted. I'm going to untwist them because the next thing we're going to do is close this ring, which is the magic bit. So keeping my working yarn out of the way, you simply, making sure you've got all 6 stitches. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I'm simply counting the V's. So when you've got 6 V's, with your tail yarns, as if by magic, you pull and this ring gets smaller. Now, I want it quite tight, but don't pull it so much that it snaps. This is why I've doubled it up, because it makes it a little bit more secure. So that is nice and tight. And what we need to do is to join this round with a slip stitch. If you're following along with the written pattern, which is on my blog, you'll know that it will say slip stitch into the first half treble crochet to join. So again, I'm just moving my tail ends out of the way. I've inserted my hook into the top of that first treble crochet, first half treble crochet in that round. If you need to double check, you can count back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're just going to literally insert the hook under all the loops from that first stitch. You can push it on with your fingers, that's absolutely fine. And to slip stitch, to join it, we simply bring the yarn over through the stitch we've just inserted the hook into and straight through that stitch that's on our hook. So we end up with a little stitch, and that joins those 2 rounds. So that's the end of round 1. You can give your tail ends another tug just to make sure you've got no hole left. So going into round 2, we're going to start by chaining 1, which does not count as a stitch. What we're going to do into each stitch around in round 2 is we're going to place 2 half treble crochets into each stitch around. So we start by yarning over, and we're going to work into that first stitch that we've just done that slip stitch in. You can just see that hole there. So we've yarned over, I'm putting my finger on to keep everything secure, pop my hook through, we're going to yarn over, bring that loop back through the hook. There are 3 loops on there. I'm going to yarn over as we did before and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. We're going to place another stitch into the exact same place that we've worked. So we yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch that we've just worked, yarn over to bring a loop up, yarn over and pull down, remember, and pull through all 3 loops. So here we've placed 2 half treble crochets into the same stitch. And we're going to do that into each stitch around. So we'll go through that again, working into the next stitch underneath both bits of the V. We're going to insert, yarn over and insert the hook into that stitch, yarn over, bring a loop up. So we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pull through all 3, working into the exact same stitch we've just worked into. We're going to place another half treble. So we yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, got 3 loops on our hook, yarn over again and pull through all 3. So keep working into each stitch around, placing 2 half treble crochets into each stitch, and you'll end up with a total of 12 stitches around. So you have 12 V's all the way around. So you've already done 4, you just need to place it into the next however many stitches. Oh, I'm bad at maths. So I'll meet you round at the other end, ready to slip stitch to join. So just place 2 half treble crochets into each stitch around. So that was number 12 for me. Now it looks like we have another stitch here, but that is not a stitch. So remember at the end of round 1, excuse me, the end of round 1, we slip stitch to join. That is our slip stitch, because there is our chain 1 that we did. So what we need to do at the end of round 2 is to slip stitch into the top of the first half treble crochet that we made. So locate where that first one is, double check and do a count as to how many V's that you've got. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and the one underneath our hook is number 12. So I'm going to slip stitch into the underneath both loops of the stitch. Again, I've pushed it onto my hook because it's a little bit tight. And to slip stitch, we just yarn over, bring it through the first bit and straight through that loop on our hook. And that closes the ring. So that's the end of round 2 already. Going into round 3, we're going to increase again in this round. So we start by chaining 1, but this time we're going to place 1 half treble crochet into the first stitch and then 2 half treble crochets into the next. And that is the pattern all the way around. So we'll do the first few stitches together. So we've done our chain 1 and we're going to place our first half treble crochet into the same stitch that we slip stitched into. So yarn over the hook, insert into the same stitch as your slip stitch, yarn over, bring your loop up, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. So that's stitch number 1. The next stitch we're going to place 2 half treble crochets. So insert your hook, bring a loop up, pull through all 3 loops. So that's number 1. We're going to do exactly the same into that same stitch space again. So over those 2 stitches, we've made it 3. So we've got 1 in our first stitch and 2 in our next. And we're going to repeat that around. So in the next stitch, we're going to place 1. And then in the next stitch, we're going to place 2 half treble crochets in the same stitch. If you're following along with the pattern, it will be written as 2HTR. Oh dear. So that's, we've done a double or 2 half treble crochets into that stitch there. So in the next one, it's just 1. And then 2 into the next stitch. So this means that we're going to increase our stitches by a total of 6, which will bring us to a total of 20 stitches at the end of this round. So keep going around, placing 1 single crochet in one stitch and then 2 half treble crochets into the next. Oops. Checking I've got 2 in that one. Which means that we should finish this round placing 2 half treble crochets into the last stitch around. That's my 2 in there. It's a really good time to do a stitch count because this is going to be the last increase round. So I'm going to count around. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So at the end of round 2, you should have a total of 18 stitches around. So we're just going to do a double check of the stitch count here that we have. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and that one under our hook makes 18. I hope you could hear that over my dog barking. So again, we've got that little stitch there that we don't want to work into. That was our slip stitch where we joined our round. And once again, we're going to slip stitch to join under that first half treble crochet that we made at the beginning of the round. So you have to wiggle your hook on, making sure you get all those loops. There we go. And we're going to yarn over to pull through and straight through the loop on our hook. Do that again for you. So at the end of round 2, we are going to slip stitch to join into that first half treble crochet. So we're just going to insert the hook. We're going to yarn over the hook, pull through, and yarn over. Oh no, and just pull straight through, sorry, don't yarn over again. So that's the end of round 2. 3. So at the end of round 3, we're going to slip stitch into the first stitch from this round. Just insert that hook under, yarn over to bring a loop through, and straight through the loop on your hook, and that will secure that ring. Going into round 4, we're going to chain 1. It's a nice easy round. We're going to place 1 half treble crochet into each stitch around, including that first stitch that we're working into where we've just slip stitched. So we yarn over the hook, insert the hook, yarn over, pull, bring it back through to bring a loop up, yarn over and pull through all 3. And continue to work all the way around for round 4, placing 1 half treble crochet into each stitch around. And you'll notice that your circle should be no longer flat, because what we're actually doing here is we're starting to work on the side of the hat. Well, Egg Cosy, it's exactly the same as any normal beanie that you would make. Keep working around, placing 1 half treble crochet into each stitch around, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. I'm just placing my last stitch for the end of round 4. So at the end of round 4, you'll see that your hat is starting to form its shape and it's bringing itself in. And to really secure that, this time when we slip stitch into the top of our first half treble crochet, it will really bring it into a hat shape. So double check your stitch count. You should still have a total of 18 half treble crochets all the way around. And we're just going to slip stitch into that first stitch from this round to join. So there we are, we've got the makings of a hat. I promise we have the makings of a hat. So into round 5, it's exactly the same as round 4. We're just going to repeat round 4. So we start by chaining 1 and then working into that same stitch that we half treble crocheted. We're going to place a half treble crochet into each stitch around. So again, at the end of round 5, you'll also have a stitch count of 18. So keep placing 1 half treble crochet into each stitch around, and I shall meet you back at the end of round 5. There we are. So that is the end. End of round 5 for me. As always, we have that little slip stitch there that we're not going to work into. I'm just going to tuck those into the middle for now so they're out of the way. And we should have our same stitch count of 18. So this time, at the end of round 5, as always, we are going to slip stitch to the top of the first half treble crochet that we made in this round. You just bring it through and straight through that loop on your hook. Now this is the main hat portion completed. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start working on the brim. Now to do that, we're going to change colours. So you're going to need, she says, carefully grabbing her other wool, bring that round. Again, I'm doubling up here with my white colour. I have one end there, where's the other end? There it is. So I'm simply just going to make sure that they are starting at the same point. So we're going to need our white. If you're doubling up, do that here. And to change colours from this point, the easiest way of doing it is simply placing it with the tail ends away from you onto your hook, just like that, grasping both lots of the working yarn and the tail ends, and we're just going to bring it through the loop on our hook. Don't worry if it's a bit big, because now that that's on there, we can tighten the red just by pulling it. I'm going to find my tails and just move those over there. To secure this, I'm going to pinch all these ends and just bring that white back down. And then I'm going to do my chain 1 to secure that white into that position, okay? I'm going to leave my red attached just in case I make any mistakes. I hate wasting yarn, so that'll prevent me doing that. And on this round, we're actually going to work into the back loop of the stitch only. Now, if you haven't done this before, I will show you quickly what I mean. So when we have a look at a stitch, so for instance, this is normally where we would insert our hook into a stitch. You'd go under both loops. Now, obviously, it's made up of a front loop and a back loop. So when we're working in the back loop only, we're going to aim our crochet hook in the middle of the stitch so that we pick up the stitch, the half of the stitch that's furthest away from us. This is the back loop. So you've got 2 loops of a stitch, and we're going to aim down the middle of the stitch so that we pick up just the back loop. So let's do that together on these first few stitches. So where we've slip stitched is going to be slightly harder to see, but it is simply just there. So I'm going to insert my hook. Now this time we're just going to be doing a double crochet. We're just going to be doing a double crochet, and we're going to be placing it into the back loop only. So with your crochet hook, see if I can do this so you can see it, you're just going to aim your hook in the middle of your stitch there, same stitch that you slip stitched into, and we're simply just going to pick up the back loop. But you want both loops of your, because obviously we doubled up the yarn. So if you can see that again. So we've got the normal stitch would be aiming for, we'd go in under there. This time we're going to go down the middle of the stitch and pick up the back loops only. If you're feeling really confident, you want to weave your ends in as you go, bring your ends back over your hook. You're going to yarn over, bring your colour through, and your tails will be sitting on the top. So for your double crochet, you've got 2 loops on your hook. And we're just going to simply yarn over and pull through both loops. And that secures those ends in for you all at the same time. So working into that next stitch, you can see you've got your front loop towards you. So we're going to aim for the middle of that stitch and just insert to pick up those back loops only. You're weaving your ends in, bring them back over your hook. We're going to yarn over, bring your hook back through, yarn over and pull through both loops on the hook. So do stitch number 3. Again, we're aiming for the middle of that stitch only to get that back loop only. I'm going to bring my ends over as I weave them in. I'm going to yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through both loops on your hook. And as you can see, it's leaving this lovely ridge where we're leaving that half of the stitch unworked. So again, aim for the middle of your stitch. I'm going to bring my ends over, yarn over, bring that back through, yarn over, pull through both loops. We're going to continue to do that the whole way around. And if you're happy with what you're doing, you can cut your red yarn. I'm going to trim mine now, just so I can work those ends in a bit easier. So I've trimmed those, and I can get rid of my red. There we go. So we're going to continue to work into the back loop only of our stitches. So I insert my hook into the middle, bring my ends over, yarn over, bring a loop up, yarn over, pull through both loops. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. I'm not going to worry about my ends anymore. They're woven in enough. So I'm just going to kind of bring them out of my way so I can work a little bit easier. I'm just going to tuck them into the middle of the hat for now, so they are out of the way. And then I can work a little bit quicker into working just into that back loop only. So yarn over, bring the loop up, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to just do that the whole way around this row here. What are we on, 6? Yeah, goodness me, round 6 already. So again, you should end this round with a total of 18 double crochets in UK terms, single crochet in American terms. And it's the start of the brim of our egg cozy. Oops. Just remembering that we're only working into that back loop in each stitch around to create a lovely little edge to our brim. So this is the last stitch for me. Again, I've got my slip stitch there that I'm going to ignore, and this is my chain 1. This here is the first stitch of this round. I'm just going to slip stitch to join. Oops. There we go, and pull straight through. And that's the first row of our brim done. So we've only got one more to go, to be honest. We're going to do row 7, which is exactly the same as we've just done, just so you don't have any pesky ends to deal with. So we start by chaining 1, and we're going to work into the back loop only. So you may find it a little bit more difficult to see working in the white yarn. Don't let that scare you. Just get some really good light so you can see exactly what you're doing. So we're simply working into the back loop only. So instead of going under, we're going down the middle of the stitch towards the back and placing a double crochet into each stitch around. Again, we should have the same stitch count of 18 at the end of round 7. And when we reach the end of round 7, to give it a really fabulous finish, I'm going to show you how to finish off using the invisible join. I love to use the invisible join because it really does give you a flat finish. You know, sometimes when you fasten off on a round and you chain 1 and you end up with a little bit of a lump. With the invisible join, you don't get that. So once you've worked all the way around, placing a double crochet into each stitch around, we're going to do an invisible join rather than slip stitching, okay? This is my last one here. So normally on every other round, oh, I've run out of wool, here we are. Let me just move that, a bit more, there we go. So instead of slip stitching to join to the top of this stitch here, what we're going to do, just going to pop everything down and just leaving a bit of a tail because we need to weave in as well. We're just going to snip the yarn and we are going to pull through gently both strands of these yarns. Oh, there we go. I was tangling myself up. So we haven't finished this stitch. So to join, we're going to thread these on both these ends onto our needle. And what we're going to do is, so this is the way it was facing, we are going to insert our needle under both loops of the first stitch and bring that through. So it has to be overly tight because we want it to look the same size as a stitch. So it's gone underneath both those loops. And then to finish, you see where that was coming out from our last stitch. We're going to insert our needle in the back loop of the last stitch that we worked. So we just insert under there. And then no one knows where it was joined. It's as simple as that. Now to fasten this off, we're simply going to, I probably should change to my right hand, sorry, I sew with my other hand. We're just going to secure that underneath the back of one of these stitches just by bringing the needle through, and I'm going to, just before it comes through, just bring my needle through to make a knot effectively. There we go, just to secure it for a moment, and then we're going to weave these ends in. So turn your hat inside out. So you've got these ends that you've already worked. If you've worked over them, you can just, they'll be secure enough just to give them a snip. If you haven't worked over them, you will need to weave them in. Now this one we're going to attach our pom-pom with those strands. So it's just this white one here we need to weave in. To make sure that no one can see it, we like to be as neat as possible. We are simply going to just weave in under these stitches here. So with weaving your ends in, you're aiming to go under a stitch without pulling it too tightly. This isn't about making it really hidden, it's about securing the ends. And I'm just going to go back the same way that I came, but one stitch forward. So with weaving your ends in, I would always recommend that you weave backwards and forwards a minimum of 3 times. So I've ended here, so I'm going to go in under this stitch here and back through the same way and out the other end. There we go. And I'm just going to snip that end. And there we are, that's all woven in. So we can turn it the right way around. And we have our little completed hat. We're going to leave these for a moment because we're going to use them to secure our pom-pom. So we're going to need our 35 sized pom-pom maker, and we're going to need our white yarn. So let's grab all of those materials and we're going to make the perfect pom-pom. So this is the way that I make a perfect pom-pom. Well, I think they're perfect. So if you've never used one of these Clover pom-pom makers before, they come in 2 sections. You want to make sure they're connected, and then you should have your edges met up like that, and you can open it out. Now to make my life easy, I keep one side closed as I'm filling the other side. So you can do that just by holding it simply like that. Now as you can see, there's this little dip here. Now there's a common mistake that people make, and they don't use enough yarn when making a pom-pom. I'll show you as we go through. So I kind of pop the end there, and I'm going to weave it around just to secure that end in place. It's the fiddliest bit, and try and keep these level. You want to make sure that you're not putting any yarn around this bit here. And we're simply going to wind the yarn around quite neatly. It doesn't have to be done quickly. I'm going to wind it around so that the yarn is in the same place the whole way. You don't want to be overlapping it just yet because you want these to all be the same size. So work your way around, making sure that nothing gets, I call these the feet, get wrapped around the foot here. And as you can see, we're starting to fill up that middle section. You don't want any gaps at all. Angle the yarn from the middle if you can. So most people would stop there thinking that it's full, but we want no dip in the middle here, which is why you need really sharp scissors. So just keep winding around until there is no pink showing through in this case, or whatever colour your pom-pom maker is. We want that middle section completely full, and this will make a nice thick pom-pom. So when you're happy, simply push it down to close it, and then we can snip that end there. Just snip, and it will shrink down. That's fine. I'm going to keep that side closed, and we're going to open the other side now. And we're going to literally repeat that the whole way around. So we're going to wind the yarn around once again. So just get your end and work. It's always the trickiest bit. And just work around that to secure it. You see how that's gone over? We don't want that. We're going to pop that back around there and just tighten. And I've done it twice. Let me open this a bit more. There we go. And just keep winding around, the exact same way that we did before, working around the middle of the pom-pom maker first of all. Making sure not to go round the edge, because we are going to cut down the middle in a moment, and you don't want anything to not get cut. So again, it is, you know, it uses a lot more yarn than people expect when they're making pom-poms. Make nice thick, done it again, nice thick chunky pom-poms, making sure that we don't have a curve here. So we want to fill that space completely. And try and have it as even as possible around the pom-pom maker. There we go. Oops, one more round. Again, I'm just going to pull that closed, and I'm just going to snip that there. Just snip. Okay, I'm going to leave that there for a moment. Pop that down. We're going to cut a length of the yarn that you're using. It's going to be the same colour because you're going to tie it on. But you need to see how much tension you can put on your yarn before it snaps, because we're going to tie some very tight knots. So cut quite a long length and just snip that there. We're going to need that in a moment, okay? So you can see here we've got a gap the whole way around, and this is simply where we are going to cut our pom-pom. That's why these pom-pom make it so much easier. So literally you want to insert your scissors in the gully, I suppose, and simply cut. And it will cut all the strands at the same time. Work around that half, making sure that every strand has been cut, and then do the exact same thing on this side. So you see there are no strands at all that are attached. Okay, so this is where it gets a little bit fiddly, because what we want to do is place the yarn again through the gully without pulling. First of all, just kind of gently pull so it gets pulled through a little bit. Okay, you don't have to hold on to that. That's fine, that's safe, because then we're going to tie a knot. We can't pull too tightly because the yarn will break. So just gently secure, and you'll see that these will shrink in as you pull. Once that one's done, we're going to turn it upside down and bring the ends up. Again, so just kind of bring them through, and it will hold them there for you. And we're going to tie another knot. And it will just disappear through the middle. There we go. So that's two. Pull gently, that's it. And then again, just bring it back round the other way. And this time we're going to do a kind of double knot. So bring the ends around as you would a normal knot. But this time, to make it extra secure, just bring the end around again and you get kind of like a double knot. And this time just pull, and that will completely and utterly secure your pom-pom. So this is the real fun bit. I'm going to wiggle those so that they stay together. You can just twist this apart, but I like to be a bit more gentle than that and just lift the ends out on both sides and then twist and it releases. Now in theory, that's a good enough pom-pom. However, I'm giving it a bit of a shake. You'll see that the ends don't come out because if they are a few little stragglers, it's probably those ones that were right at the beginning. Now to really make the most beautiful pom-pom, this is where your scissors come in because we don't want these bits hanging out, these longer bits. So whatever size pom-pom maker you make, you're going to end up with a size smaller because we are going to trim like we've never trimmed before. I'm going to give this pom-pom a blooming good haircut. And just work your way around, curving as you can, and taking quite a lot off because you can see the difference of where you've cut, of how much flatter it looks and how much more full the pom-pom looks. So just work your way around. I'm holding my tails so I don't cut them by mistake because that's how we're going to secure our pom-pom in a moment to our little egg cozy. Again, when I'm working at the bottom, I just move my ends out of the way. Let's give it a bit of a trim. So it's not just the obvious ones that are really sticking out we're cutting them all to give them a nice blunt end. This is probably the longest part of making a really nice pom-pom, but it really does give it a wonderful finish and a fuller finish at the end as well. I'm a bit of a perfectionist. This could take me some time. So I'm going to crack on and get a pom-pom shape I'm very happy with. If you're happy with your pom-pom, you don't have to watch this. I'm going to speed this up anyway, but those little long ones definitely need to go, don't they? So just work your way around, give it a bit of a fluff and a nice firm finish, and you too will have beautiful pom-poms every time. So I am quite happy with that pom-pom. Quite happy that I've made a nice big mess there. I'm just going to sweep that over there so it's out of the way. Good enough. And then I'm going to add this onto our hat. This is why I've kept these strands here, because for me, one of the best ways of securing my pom-pom is simply tying it on securely. No one's wearing this other than our lovely little leg. So I'm simply going to insert my hook. This is a needle, into that center that we first made. Go straight through with one of these strands, pull through. I'm then going to pop the other strand on to my needle. And I'm going to go slightly left or right, whichever side of where it's already gone in, and insert my needle in through there and pull that strand through. And if we look at the inside, see if I can turn this out for you, you'll see that these two strands are coming in at slightly different places, and then we have these two strands that we know are the center. So I'm going to turn it the right way so it's nice and right to the top, and simply tie a knot with both the two colours to secure. Do that nice and tight because I hate a wobbly pom-pom. There we go. So that's nice and tight. I'm going to do that again. I always do things in threes. I don't know, the power of three. I blame Davina. Okay. Make sure that's nice and secure. And again, if you were giving this to someone to wear, I would suggest you weave these in. However, this is going to be sat on an egg, so I'm not overly worried. So I'm simply just going to snip these ends, and there we have another little egg cozy. So now I've got two. So I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial on how to make a perfect pom-pom and make yourself a lovely little egg cozy. So you can just pop these on your boiled eggs so that it keeps them nice and cozy when you're serving your breakfast. Thank you so much for joining me. Don't forget, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so that you never need to miss out on another one of my crochet tutorials or one of my patterns once again. Thank you for joining me.